Hey, this is Heidi Dawson. If you love all things health and wellness and style of any kind, hang out here with me each week. I'm obsessed with never ending improvement, and it's all in an effort to help each one of us live a wildly successful lifestyle. Subscribe today so you don't miss a thing. Hi, guys. Welcome to episode 444 of the Wildly Successful Lifestyle Podcast. What's going on? How's life treating you guys lately? Are you wildly successful or at least headed in that direction? I bet you are because you're here, right? And that's what we're all about. Sometimes, though, we do still get stuck. And even though we put tons of effort, there seems to be that one area where you just can't seem to move the needle very much. Does that sound familiar? Well, you may have a worldview problem. I looked up the definition of worldview. This is so interesting to me because why don't we all know this? But it's a collection of attitudes, values, stories, and expectations about the world around us, which inform our every thought and action. Our every thought and action, really? That's so powerful. I mean, that's a lot of power in our life. It's crazy that we're not learning everything we can about our worldview. But I think we're just not there yet. I think we're just coming around to realizing that some of these things are really important in our thoughts, and our worldview is one of them. That's okay, though. This is the perfect time for us to figure it out. So we know our worldview is important, but is it serving us? I mean, we see everything through the lens of our worldview. We read text through the worldview. We hear conversations through it. We judge people through it. And we wonder how we keep getting the same results as we've always gotten, but we're not changing the thing that causes us to do the things we do. And that's our worldview. We never notice, so therefore we can't change it. I mean, I call it, really, I gave it a new name. It's called the way we were raised lens. We all have a deep-seated idea of the world. And if we get still and we step away enough to notice how the way I was raised affects so much, even without us noticing it, it's subtle and sneaky, and it affects everything we do. I read a quote from Tony Dungy this week. It said, "Be positive. Your mind is more powerful than you think. What is down in the well comes up in the bucket." Fill yourself with positive things. I love that. I thought it was so applicable to this episode. But I grew up in a family with loving parents. I'm very extremely fortunate to be able to say that, and I know it. Now, we didn't have a lot of money, though. And there were a lot of times we just didn't have money to do the things that like our friends were doing, like go to the skating rink or movies or out for pizza. And sometimes I'd go anyway. I don't like to think about the times that I'd go with friends and just not have money to eat pizza. So I didn't, or I would hope someone would share theirs. It was embarrassing then, and it's hard to even share that now. But that isn't how I live anymore. We're blessed beyond my wildest dreams. But I do notice that I still have the tendency to view the world through the lens of money scarcity. I mean, I've sort of known that, but since I've been reading Eckhart Tolle's books, I've become extremely aware of how my subconscious is so responsible for a lot of the ways things turn out. Now, I am a natural born optimist, okay? I know that. I've been a natural born optimist, but now I realize that I have to attach that I also have a money scarcity lens. It's an interesting combination, but the more I am aware of the money scarcity thoughts, the less power that they have. That old saying, dark can't survive in light, is so true. You see, the subtle way that deep-seated money scarcity lens was affecting my day-to-day was interesting to notice. I've talked about it before with saving paper towels for later use so as not to waste them, or keeping socks or undergarments too long, even if they had holes in them. I'm guilty of that. There's so many ways it shows up, but it's not just in my personal day-to-day. It also would show up in my work as well. I mean, I would hate sending invoices or avoid even offering really expensive items to clients. I would dread talking about money with them, all because I had this deep-seated thought that money is scarce. Now, once I noticed I was doing that, I really had to work on it. I had to give myself leverage by telling myself out loud that, look, if this design budget is too high for a client, they'll tell me. But I am not limiting their options anymore because I'm afraid it's too expensive. They'll let me know. I realized that there were things that my clients love that I would normally not consider because of the cost. At one point, I was working with a client. She was kind of blunt. I love that. And there was this look that I loved, and I was sharing the idea with her. And I noticed myself saying, now this is very pricey, but we can do something similar for less money. She actually said to me, she goes, look, I don't care about budget. I want what I want, and I want it to be high end. I realized right there that my subtle money scarcity worldview was putting limitations on my clients, and that wasn't fair to them or me. Now, that was my issue, not theirs, but I was in a roundabout way making it their issue by limiting what I used in my projects due to what they cost. Our worldview could be tons of things. It could be one of fear of rejection, or maybe a fear of imposing on others so that you're always apologizing for taking up space because it imposes on others. Or you keep to yourself because putting yourself out there might mean rejection. So we limit ourselves and we limit others by doing that too. I was in the sauna one day and I had 10 more minutes left, and I was pretty full when a girl walked in and there was nowhere for her to sit. And I felt myself about to get up so that she could sit down, when I realized that I had just as much right to be in that sauna as anyone else did. I was proud of myself for that. Now, some of you might say, well, you were just being selfless. That's okay. But what is it called when you're selling yourself short because you feel like maybe you're not worthy enough to take up that space? I promise you, you are. And so am I. I had a friend recently who was having a party, and she wasn't sure if she wanted to impose on others by inviting them. And I told her, people love being invited places. It makes them feel included. Don't take that from them. If they don't want to come, they'll tell you that they can't make it. And that's totally fine. I used to have that mindset too, thinking that someone wouldn't want to be invited to a party. And then I found out later that they had their feelings hurt because they weren't. My fear of rejection, in a sense, made someone else feel rejected in a roundabout way. You see how we create all this pain and suffering. We create it, and most of it's coming directly from the way we view this world. And I never realized I even had a worldview that could affect things, but now I know we all do. Every single person we meet is making decisions and living their life from their own personal worldview. And there's nothing wrong with that unless it's getting in the way of you being authentically happy and living the life that you were meant to live. Now, through this podcast and other growth opportunities like reading books and meditating and listening to other podcasts as well, I've come to realize that I knew I was meant for more. But I kept stumbling over my own feet. I kept having the same issues over and over, thinking I wasn't good enough or I didn't have business savvy. But that isn't it. I had to grow enough to realize that the steps I was taking were the same steps I had always been taking, because that's all my worldview would allow for. And it's definitely that saying I love to say and use. It's the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over but expecting different results. If you feel like you're putting a lot of effort in with the same results you've always gotten, there's something in your worldview that's holding you back. You're making decisions based on a worldview that no longer serves you. It's time to make decisions from a place that does serve you. And the first step to that is being aware that you're doing it in the first place, that you even have a worldview. Like me, learning my money scarcity worldview or my fear of rejection. My being aware of those limitations for me allows them to no longer have power over my life and my decisions. Darkness cannot survive in the light. Never forget that. So, what's your worldview? And what decisions are you making because of it? That's my challenge for you today. Think about a few of the areas where you've been stuck, maybe forever. Is it your finances, your weight, your relationships? There's something in your worldview that's keeping you doing the same thing over and over, but expecting different results. And look, I know you're not insane. You wouldn't be listening to the Wildly Successful Lifestyle podcast if you were. You're simply a human being with a lens that has gotten you to this phase of your life. But that lens may not serve you in the next phase. In fact, it may not even get you there. But that's why you're here, and we can figure this out together. We are figuring this out together. Share this podcast with 3 people who are ready for the next phase. I love you guys. I'll talk to you in a few days. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends, because we're just going to keep going bigger and better places together, and I love that about us. Talk to you in a few days.